Hello Glamour Ghouls and welcome back. If you are new here, my name is Midge Munster, and on this channel we do all things campy, kooky, glamorous, and spooky. If you follow me on Instagram, you might have seen last week we had our first official big code orange news. Spirit Halloween sent along their influencer PR boxes to start teasing what the theme of the stores are going to be. I did a little video over there unboxing this PR box. This is by far one of the coolest pieces of PR I have ever not only received, but even seen any other influencer ever receive as well. It's just very, very cool marketing. But if you haven't gotten a chance to see that, I want to go ahead and show you what we got going on here. So they sent over these great wood boxes that say Spirit Hallows Cemetery, established in 1983. And immediately when I opened this, I was crazy excited. Anything cemetery related gets me like feeling really excited about it. So then we open it up and it has this little envelope up top and this mossy cover with a tiny metal shovel. And when I opened this, it has a note inside that says dig in with some little bats on it. I'm also going to show the QR code that was sent with this, just so y'all can take a little photo of your screen right now if you want and check out this preview that Spirit sent of their new Spirit Hallows Cemetery line. And y'all, let me tell you, these are so great. They have a whole new line of gorgeous cemetery stones, headstones. Really, really cool. Go check it out. So we've got our little moss box here and our little metal shovel. Isn't that just the cutest thing you've ever seen? And this little flap lifts up. Now, when I originally opened this, this coffin was covered with dirt. And you can kind of see, if we peek in here, that there is a dirt substance inside of here. And y'all, I was in awe of this. I don't know what it is. It's like a kinetic sand type substance, but it feels like actual dirt, and you had to dig out the coffin. There's also like a worm in here. Just like so much fun. Then you get the little coffin out. It says Spirit on it. Opened it up, and this was wrapped in this gauze, but it's a little replica of their Lord Decanaver animatronic that is their like hanging upside down spooky vampire lord. So like I said, this was just wicked freaking cool. I thought it was such a unique way to present the information. Smart marketing. Whoever came up with this campaign over at Spirit, congratulations. Super fun. And then once I was done, I just kept thinking, what am I gonna do with this? This is so many PR boxes that you receive are just like cardboard and full of, you know, kind of tchotchkes and junk that you don't really have a use for. I've never received something like this that was so ornate and cool. I obviously am not gonna throw it away. I didn't wanna just like stick it in a closet somewhere where I was never gonna see it again. And then it occurred to me, if you watched the video where I was unboxing this on my Instagram, I kept saying, oh my gosh, this is giving me such Beetlejuice vibes. You know, the scene where they're in the model and they're having to dig up Beetlejuice to summon him for the first time. And we get the iconic Beetlejuice tombstone and the Beetlejuice flashing marquee sign. That was all I could picture when I was digging up this little grave. And so I decided I want to upcycle this box into a Beetlejuice diorama. And if you've been with me for quite some time, you know that I have a Beetlejuice themed guest room, which we affectionately here call the Beetle Suite. So once we get this all beetled and juicified, I'm going to display it up in the Beetle Suite so that my guests can enjoy it and I can enjoy it for many years to come. I am so excited about this project. I think it's gonna be really, really fun. I already have the full concept of what I wanna do here, so let's take a moment and look at my design plan. So first things first, we have the outside of our box. So first on the top of our box, we're gonna cancel out this spirit logo by using some spackle and sanding it down. Then once that dries, we'll add our own Beetlejuice logo and paint the outside of the box with some black and white stripes. Inside the box, we're going to leave the moss as it is. We'll take the envelope out of the inside of the lid and add our Beetlejuice marquee sign. I'm hoping I can find a way to add some fairy lights here to make this actually light up. I think we'll use the flap that was covering the grave to install Beetlejuice's tombstone here. And I'm thinking about the possibility of adding a spooky tree over here like in the film. That will give us something to lean our shovels against. Then the last thing to do will be to redo the coffin to look like Beetlejuice's from the film, and hopefully I'll be able to find a little Beetlejuice figure to put inside. So that's the plan. Let's get started. So starting out, I got out my spackle and started covering these embossed areas on top of the box. We want to try to get them as flat and clean as possible to start fresh. While I was working on that, I also covered this embossed spirit logo on the coffin as well. Then while I waited for those to dry, I worked on removing the residue from the glue on that envelope in order to prep this space for painting. I started out by just painting a flat black on the inside of the lid of the box. This is going to serve as our night sky type area over our cemetery, so we want to get that covered and then we can build on top of it. Then again, while I waited for that to dry, I started working on building the Beetlejuice marquee sign. So I had this leftover cardboard box from, I don't know, probably something I ordered in the mail, and I thought I would use this to sculpt our little sign out of. I started by just cutting out the general shapes that we need for the arrow and the center of the sign. This took a little bit of back and forth and tweaking sizes to make sure everything looked cohesive and looked in proportion to one another, but after a while I was really happy with how it came out. Once I had all the major shapes cut out, I started working on this little border for the sign. This was probably the hardest part and the most tedious. Working out all these little beveled angles to make sure everything fit together was a challenge, but in the end I think it looks really nice. Then once I had that together, I started painting. So I mixed up this yellow gold color as well as a deep crimson for the arrow, and I think everything looks pretty screen accurate. I'm really happy with the color mixes. This was when the sign started really taking form. It just looked like a bunch of pieces of cardboard at first, but once the colors started coming together, I got really excited. After those dried enough to assemble, I hot glued everything together and then started working on the lettering. If you look at the image of the sign on the left of the screen there, you can see it does have some lines running through it. So I used a straight edge to mark out those lines and then decided to just write the Beetlejuice font right on there in a ballpoint pen. I was going to paint it on, but this offered a lot more control, and honestly, because of the way the ink just slid onto the surface, was really easy to bulk up in different places. I think it ended up being the best option. I can't even tell you the number of times during this part where I was double, triple, quadruple checking to make sure that Beetlejuice was spelled correctly. In particular, this spelling of it is definitely one of those things that the more times you write it looks less and less like a real word. Then once I was happy with how that looked, I took a slightly damp paintbrush while the ink was still a little wet and dragged it through the words. This created a really cool streaking, kind of distressed effect that is also present in the film version of the sign, and I was really, really thrilled with how this technique paid off. Then, as I mentioned in the beginning, I really wanted this sign to light up. And I had these fairy lights laying around, and I thought, well, surely we can make something work with those. So I hot glued them to the edge of the sign, and then at the end here where it came to a close, I just snipped off the excess. And as you can see, it worked perfectly. They turned out super cute, and it lights up. However, my one complaint was that even though it lit up, it didn't really look like a marquee sign. It didn't look like there were light bulbs around the sign at all. So I got these yellow rhinestones and decided to use them to outline the border and the arrow of the sign in order to give that illusion of light bulbs all the way around. And regardless of my evident struggle with these rhinestones, it turned out really nicely. Once I was happy with how everything looked, I just hot glued it into the lid of the box. In retrospect, this piece is pretty large. I don't know if I meant for it to be quite this scale, but I don't even care. It looks so cute, and I'm really thrilled with how it all came together. The last thing that I did here was just take some very watered down black paint and a tiny detail brush and went into all the nooks and crevices of this sign to distress it and make it look worn and dirty. As you know in the film, this is outside in the model, it's in a cemetery, and it's kind of suggested that it's been there for quite a while, much like Beetlejuice himself, and so I wanted to make sure it looked like it had been out in the dirt and the grime. One thing I really love about these type of projects is that they don't have to be perfect, and so it allows you some space to just have fun and get a little bit messy. And that's the sign finished. So with that complete, we moved on to Beetlejuice's tombstone, and there is absolutely no circumstances under which I could have sculpted or done anything that looked remotely as good as the tombstone from the film, so I ended up just printing a copy of the image and gluing it to some hard cardstock so it stood up, and then hot gluing that right into the moss above the grave. The other great thing about this is we are trying to make everything as flat and compact as possible so that the box still closes. Now the spackle was all dry on top of the box, so I sanded that down and put the on the box. I will say with white it's hard to get a nice even coverage, so I did a bunch of thin layers. I think it ended up taking 3 coats to fully cover it. And while I waited for that to dry, I started working on repainting the coffin as well. This is one of my favorite things to do. I spent a lot of time in theater school painting wood to look like wood, and I always think it's really fun. Now, while we wait for all of our paint to dry, let's take a quick moment and get a word from today's sponsors. Hair Eyewear presents Bemidged, starring Midge Munster.
Come on, you. I am never going to be able to fit all of my vacation outfits in this tiny suitcase Darren bought me. Maybe I could give it just a little more space. Oh, there. Much, much better. Oh no. Even this larger size case is completely full with all of my clothes, and I haven't even packed my sunglasses. I can't go on a sunny tropical cruise without sunglasses. What am I gonna do? I know, I'll just pack my pair.
Pair provides low-cost prescription eyewear with a twist. Their unique top-frame technology allows you to switch your style in an instant. It's easier than magic. Tired of not being able to wear sunglasses with your frames? No problem. Pair has adorable sunshade options to convert your glasses into prescription sunnies with a snap of your fingers. And with over 650 unique top-frame options to choose from, starting at just $25, it's super affordable to change your look. Virtual try-on lets you find your perfect pair right from your home. Just select your base frame, pick your magnetic topper, and presto, you have a bewitchingly unique pair of glasses. And because their toppers are so slim and stackable, you can take as many styles with you as you can fit in your suitcase. So if you're ready to try pair for yourself, check out the link in my description box below and use code MidgeMunster15 for 15% off your first pair.
All right, well, I'd say that about does it.
Honey, I'm home.
Oh, I'll be right there, honey. I'm ready to go. Oh, silly me, I almost forgot. Oh, there, perfect. I am getting so good at this whole being normal thing. Coming, Darren.
Thank you so much to Pair Eyewear for sponsoring today's video. Now that the white paint is dry, I took some thick blue painter's tape and just started plotting out the stripes for the outside of the box. I figured this would be the most easy way to get a nice clean line, and while it was a bit of a pain to lay this all out, it was definitely worth it in the long run. I used a second piece of tape in between each stripe just to measure out and make sure that the pattern was even. Now, I do have a feeling I'm going to get some comments about the fact that these stripes on top of the box ended up not being centered. I wasn't really focused on that in this moment because I just was focusing on making sure the pattern repeated from one side to the other correctly, and it wasn't until after I pulled the tape that I realized it was a little off-center. It doesn't bother me so much though. Everything about Beetlejuice is a little bit off. Even Tim Burton's aesthetic kind of thrives in that asymmetry, so I'm not very bothered by it, and I honestly hope you aren't either. Once I had everything taped out, I grabbed the black paint, and this was where the painter's tape really paid off. Since everything that wasn't being painted black was covered, I could really just glom on all this paint and be messy with it and not have to worry about getting it somewhere it wasn't supposed to be. This made the painting of the stripes very easy once the prep was done. I will say, even with the layer of white down first, it still took a couple of coats of the black to get that fully covered as well, so I ended up doing 2, I think, maybe 3 coats of black on the stripes as well, just to make sure it was really, really covered and pigmented. Then we wait again for it to dry. And once it did, all I had to do was pull this tape off and voila, perfect stripes. I started getting really, really excited when I was pulling this tape. I feel like this was when the Beetlejuice box really started to happen. Then once all that was pulled, I started working on the tree for the inside. Now, I had a few different ideas, but obviously, again, we are looking for something that will be flexible and not hinder the box in closing at all, so I decided the best material would be just to twist paper. As y'all know, I have done some pretty great things with paper, like my spider back in January. It really is such a versatile tool, and you can create so much with it. Once I had the basic shape lined out, I started adding paper to make this three-dimensional effect, and just tacking places with hot glue anywhere I wanted those twists to stay in place. Then once I had a shape that I liked, I took it outside and gave it a quick coat of brown spray paint. Then once that was done, I took a dry brush with some black and lighter brown paint and created shadows and highlights on the tree. And then once again, like the sign, just hot glued it into the lid of the box. I'm honestly super impressed with how this turned out. I think that twisted paper effect makes the tree very spooky and believable, and it gives it plenty of flexibility, which is exactly what we need. Now all we have left is to finish the outside of the box, so I printed off this little Beetlejuice logo, and we're just going to decoupage it to the center of the lid. A little craft glue mixed with water will seal this down nicely. Then I felt like the outside of the box was just missing something, so I mixed up a couple of green paint colors and decided to use this technique with a wadded up paper towel to create these mossy looking splotches all over the box. This is when it all came to life. This is the Beetlejuice aesthetic in a nutshell. I can't imagine the box without this now. I'm so glad that I added this at the last minute. It's one of my favorite things about the project. Here I'm just going back in with some deep green and sponging it on top of that light green to create dimension. Once I was happy with how all of that looked, it was time to finish up Beetlejuice's coffin. First thing I'm doing is just going in with some gold paint and painting on the little name placard on the front here. While I waited for that to dry, I did the same mossing technique on the outside of the coffin. We want this to look nice and dirty and grimy like it has been in the ground for a very long time. Then I just went in and added a little bit of a border to the placard with some brown to give it some depth, and used that same technique with the ballpoint pen to write his name. I unfortunately did not find a Beetlejuice figurine that fit this coffin well to use, so I had a little keychain from one of my bags and decided to just use this in there for the time being as a placeholder. Hopefully I find another one soon. But with all of that finished up, it is time to see the reveal. There you have it, our Spirit PR box converted into a Beetlejuice diorama. Overall, I'm really happy with how this turned out. I actually like the outside of the box a lot more than I even thought I would. It's so cute and fun and just looks very Beetlejuicy and spooky. I think I'm most proud of figuring out how to make the tree in a way that was collapsible so that it still looks really cool and three-dimensional, but it is able to be closed inside the box. I also really love the fact that the sign lights up. I just think overall this was a super fun way to repurpose this, and I know that people who stay in my guest room will really enjoy it as much as I do. Thank you again to Spirit Halloween for sending this box over. Thank you to Pear Eyewear for sponsoring today's video. Remember, you can check them out at the link in the description box below and get 15% off your first purchase with code Midge Munster 15 at checkout. And thank you all so much for watching today. Remember, if you're not already, to subscribe to the channel before you leave today for lots more Halloween content coming at you very soon. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and until next time, keep it campy, kooky, glamorous, and spooky. Bye!